I'm Matthew Kerbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show.
All right. Thank you to David. Thank you to Lawline. Thank you to LegalGeek for having me. Today we're talking about integrating AI in legal practice. So if you've been attending the presentations in there on the main stage, there will be a little bit of overlap of some information. And frankly, I disagree with some of the stuff being presented, but that's good, right? Let's get different viewpoints on the benefits of AI, how to use AI. And I'm also going to share today that you don't have to spend a lot of money to be leveraging some really powerful tools that still keep client documents and data secure, that's not training on anything, right? So yeah, it's funny, go from one slide to another slide that's basically the same, but this is how we're doing it. So here's what we're going to learn in today's session, right? We're going to learn about the latent legal market. Let's see a show of hands. Who's heard of the latent legal market? Anybody? Oh, good. Okay, so we've got like 5 or 6 people. Great. We're going to learn how to correctly apply AI. And I do like to talk about it at a conceptual level because we're also going to get down into the specific use cases, but I want you to understand how you should be thinking about these things when using them, right? We're going to talk a little bit about, though I have presentations on Lawline talking more in detail about the implications of AI efficiencies on the business model of law, billable hours, and how you don't and shouldn't be using that anymore in this world. And then sort of throughout, I'll be talking about tools and strategies for implementation. So quick disclaimer here, is everybody, if you're not a lawyer, raise your hand. Okay, all right, so like a third of the people here. So this is good. So this is mostly for you because the lawyers already know this stuff. Everything today is for educational purposes only. Things are also changing, right, fast in the legal AI landscape, right? So this is a snapshot of the present moment, right? Things have already changed. If I had another week, I would have changed this presentation. And companies pivot their products all the time, right? So like I'm talking about some particular products today. They may not be the same today as they are in the future. Not all of the companies will survive, right? And discussing AI is not a warranty or representation of the tool. I'm just telling you about how to think about it and the tools I'm using and some examples of how I'm using them. And since I'm not a legal tech company and I'm not selling to lawyers, I don't have demo data or dummy data on how to use these tools. So I'm not going to be using examples of how I'm helping clients with actual client documentation. I'm doing other things the same way and the same questions and prompts that I'm using for client docs that I'll show you with some other sources. But do your own research, right? You always want to do your own research. So if you haven't heard about me before, I started my own solo practice law firm based on the subscription model and ditched the billable hour back in March of 2022. And I've been using AI since the beginning. And the reason why I've been using AI since the beginning is when you stop billing by the hour, the less time something takes, the more money you make. So for the billable hour lawyers, I'm going to repeat that one more time. The less time something takes, the more money you make. And almost always it's more valuable for the client to get work product faster rather than later and longer. So what it does is it aligns incentives. So I've been using AI since the beginning, and I'll tell you what, it wasn't very good, right? You're talking about like machine learning based AI, if this, then that logic based AI, and you had to do a lot of things programmatically and like do a lot of drop down menus and like to set up automations, and it was like not really good, right? But because I was in the AI space, I was playing around with GPT 3.0, which was the predecessor to ChatGPT. And so I got a notification from OpenAI, and I was just sort of like in the tool. I was like, oh, there's this other thing. So I even started to do side-by-sides. I was comparing ChatGPT to GPT 3.0. I was like, this is significantly better and way more useful and practical to what I'm going to be doing. And even from the beginning, I was like, I'm not just going to ask it information and look for an answer. I'm going to give it examples of what to do and say, I want something like this, but with these different facts or these different information. So even sort of naturally, the way I was using the tool is the way I'm going to explain how you should be using all of these tools today. So I do teach other lawyers how to ethically and just how to use AI generally in their law practice, in addition to being a practitioner. And I was pulled kicking and screaming after ABA Tech Show a few years ago where some lawyers said, I'll pay you to teach me. I was like, shoot, I have to figure out how to do that. But that's not really my main hustle, but I do have experience working with other firms, not just with my own practice, though that's primarily where I get all this experience is on the ground, in the trenches, working on client matters. And in addition to just AI, I love tech. I love software. I love hardware. I have CLEs on tech, and I could talk tech all day. But my target market is the latent legal market, right? And so here are my software platforms. And today's talk is not actually going through all these software platforms, but watch this. These are the tools that have AI now, right? That are underlined and bolded. right? So like, yeah, it's a kind of a crazy tech stack. Yours is bigger than you think, right? When you really start thinking about all the software and platforms, like, 'cause I'm including things like LinkedIn in there, right? But like, here's all the tools. And again, here are like the highlighted underlying tools. These all have some version of AI now. So whether you know it or not, you're probably using AI. Your tech stack has AI. You might just not be thinking about it like that. But first, I want to tell you a story. This is Sally. Meet Sally, okay? She sells seashells by the seashore. And she's actually really good at it, right? Like the side hustle is working. This is her side hustle. Well, the thing is, Sally, she wanted to talk to a lawyer because the side hustle started to make her money. She found these free consultations, but didn't actually get legal advice because first it was going to cost hundreds of dollars an hour if she actually wanted legal advice. So she wanted to know, with reasonable question, how long will it take? They couldn't tell her. Well, she needs pricing certainty, and the billable hour doesn't provide that. So what did she do instead in this hypothetical? Well, she went to online platforms and used AI to generate her documents. I am getting more clients. Now, my clients hire me because they know I'm using AI. It's one of the reasons I can offer more affordable pricing. But they come to me and said, hey, ChatGPT drafted this contract. Could you help me beef it up or make it better or look for anything that's missing? So because of that, and that's happened dozens of times now, I know what ChatGPT contracts look like. So I could spot from a mile away if I see a ChatGPT drafted contract. They're bad and they're minimal, right? But the layperson doesn't know the difference. I don't think lawyers are going anywhere. But let's talk about this latent legal market, because the thing is, they're not hiring lawyers anyway, right? So according to Grandview Research, this is this research company, in 2024, $400 billion was spent on U.S. legal services. $400 billion. It's a lot of money. And there's, if you want to follow up here, I think the slides are available for download. There's the link to the source. Now, the World Justice Project estimates that 77% of legal services go unmet by lawyers. So that means only 23% of the market is being served here. And I know like only 2/3 of you are lawyers here, but lawyers tend to avoid math. But if you do a little bit of inverse math here, if you find like what's the market opportunity, you're looking at over $1.3 trillion market opportunity. And that's for the people who know they have legal needs that are going unmet. Because what about all the legal things like law is the operating system of society? That's one of the lines I tell my clients when they need to subscribe to my legal services. Law is the operating system of society. This is a legal event, right? There's laws at play just being here at this conference, right? Premises liability. We purchased a ticket that has contract terms related to it, right? We're agreeing to certain things to be photographed, right? All different sorts of law applying to this very moment. But people don't think about that. So I actually think it's probably over a $2 trillion market opportunity, but it's hard to get the data on that. Again, like these are also billable hours, right? Mostly. So think about in the non-billable space when you're doing value-based billing, that's another way that you can actually increase the value of the market opportunity is over 1.3 trillion. Now, a lot of lawyers, billable hour lawyers will say, oh, well, I'm worried about AI because the market's saturated. There's only so many clients who are willing to pay billable hours after all. They think the pie is full. But as it turns out, what you thought was the pie was just a chocolate chip that was on top of the pie. And that's the actual market opportunity there. And this is a great Google VO3 representation, right? Like I was able to make that video in Google VO, which speaking of Google VO and all the AI capabilities, let's look at AI for law firm commercials, right? Think about what it would used to have to take, right? So on May 20th, Google launched VO3, Gemini VO3. Right? This is a game changer for video. And I'll get to why this is relevant for legal services, but other than we could use this to market our firms at a super affordable rate. I pay $12 a month to Google Workspace as a Google business standard. And it's going to go up to $14 a month. Oh no, next month. And I have access to several prompts inside of VO, right? So it only generates 8 seconds right now for online, but for online ads, you watch YouTube, those ads are 5 seconds, right? Here's my 7th prompt for a fictional legal tech company that I made up for the purposes of showing this video, right? And in the first prompts, now, like a lot of AI, there's bias, and so it defaults to white people when you ask it to make a video of somebody doing something. So I prompted it, an Asian woman walking away from the camera in a city with skyscrapers. She turns her head around, looks right at the camera and says, is your attorney using Practi? They should be. Because if I were ever to be the founder of a legal tech company, well, I'd market to the potential users of legal services like pharmaceutical companies. Like pharmaceutical companies can't sell direct a lot of their medication to the patients of doctors, so they market to the patients, and they have the patients come in and say, hey, I need to use this, diabetes medication. I saw it on TV. So anyway, that's the idea behind that. But I also spelled practi phonetically, because again, these tools are going to do exactly what you say, but you have to make certain assumptions, whether you're using the video tools or the text tools, about how they may interpret something. So here's the unedited video, then my edit that took 2 minutes into script. So here's the unedited video.
Is your attorney using Practi? They should be.
That's it, right? Now at 2 minutes in another AI-powered editing tool where you edit like a Word document, but it edits audio and video. It's like really user-friendly and it's AI-powered. I was able to make this 5-second ad that could play as a short or TikTok.
Is your attorney using Practi? They should be.
So let's talk about this, right? Imagine the possibilities for you to market your practice, but just how advanced the technology is, right? In the old world, you would have had to rent equipment, hire a production team, audition an actor, and pay them, right? Write a script, kind of like I did, like you're still kind of doing this with the prompt, right? Find a day to shoot, like hope that it's sunny and not raining, that nobody's around and ruins the shot, right? Edit it over days and weeks. But in the new world, you prompt an AI tool for a new feature that I'm already paying for. I'm already paying for this tool. It's not costing me any more money, right? And that's part of the lesson today is there's tools that you're already paying for possibly that use AI that you don't even know. So you got to experiment and explore and turn on company notifications so you get notified when the new features are available, right? And again, I have the financial incentive to demo and test these tools because I don't bill by the hour. The faster I can get something done, the more money I make. That's all the financial incentive I need to demo and test these new features, these new tools, right? So I prompt this new feature in an AI tool I already have. I make minor tweaks in an AI-powered editor tool that I already have. And by the way, this could also be applied to writing too, but I think the visual representation is nice. You publish it to the world, and then it's out there. In the old world, in other words, to bring it back to law, you spend a lot of time and money to get complicated things done, billable hours. In the new world, you don't spend anything more and get it done faster and better. Same principle applies to legal services in this AI-powered world, right? So let's look at this hypothetical. Let's say you charge $500 an hour. 10 hours of billable time is $5,000. Gen AI takes that 10 hours of work, and now it will only take 10 minutes. And let's be real, those are high-quality times because really it only takes a minute to get the same summary done or other work or drafting. But then you iterate over the next 9 minutes, and in 10 minutes, you have a higher quality product than it used to take 10 hours to do the work. So under the billable hour world, but now we're in a Gen AI world, $5,000 of work is only billable at $100. Right? What do? Well, I think the Lexus CEO said you bill $25,000 an hour, but do you raise your rate? Is that what you do? No, right? To make 0.2 worth $5,000 means you're billing at $25,000 an hour, right? That's what you would have to do. That's a 50x times your rate. Will your clients be happy to pay $25,000 an hour? Are you ethically allowed to charge that? Is $25,000 an hour a reasonable fee? Anybody? We'll see a show of hands. Okay, one person thinks 20. We'll have a conversation afterwards. I'd ask for an opinion from the ethics bar about that. So there's a comment that there was a lawyer who charged $50,000 for 1 hour of work. I'd like to look into that because I think that might have actually been more value-based billing than hour-based billing. If there was a deal and there was a contract, there was $1 million contract, and the value was $1 million. Okay, we'll talk later about it. So let's say hypothetically you are allowed to charge that rate. What does that mean for the latent legal market that already can't afford billable hours? What does that mean for access to justice in this huge market opportunity, right? There's a whole other pie that could be served. Let the high billable firms and the luxury rates can charge $25,000 an hour, and let's pivot to this other market opportunity where you don't have to bill by the hour, right? So I'm going to speed through this because I'm assuming you're here at LegalGeek. You don't need too much about what makes AI generative. It generates something, right? Analysis is not technically generative, but it's powered by large language models because they're able to comprehend unstructured data semantically, so it understands the meaning rather than just doing keyword search. And really, when used correctly, it could revolutionize the practice of law. I'm going to explain in a minute why you should never use ChatGPT to do legal research and then check all your sites, because you're just wasting your time. At that point, you're not using it correctly, so it's not going to revolutionize your practice. So Gen AI's training data is not a source of facts or data any more than you learning about the law in law school is you being able to regurgitate all the things you learned in law school, right? What do? You do legal research, right? You look at cases, you look at past contracts, you look at facts, right? So you, or a database, are the source of facts or data, not the training data, right? There's even Sam Altman is recently quoted as saying something like they want smaller models that just have access to your data and all the tools and things that you need, rather than training it on everything. And they want, and with $1 trillion token window for context or context window, right? So even OpenAI is moving in this direction. And while it's not perfect, are your human lawyers perfect? No. Here's another analogy for you. This is a new one. Let's say you hire a contractor to do work at your home. You're going to pay them by the hour. They show up with a manual screwdriver and saw. Well, even though you don't really know a lot about construction work, you know there's such things as power tools, right? So why didn't they bring them, you ask? And you say, okay, I'm not paying you by the hour when I know power tools exist, right? Now, of course, the analogy is large language models are the power tools of professionals for professional services, right? So the contractor begrudgingly comes back with power tools, right? But what the contractor does is they set out a 2x4 to saw in half, and instead of grabbing the power saw, they use the power drill to drill sequential holes to cut the 2x4 in half, like drilling the holes close to each other, right? And by the way, I tried to use Veo and some AI tools to generate a video about this, but it was so nonsensical it couldn't actually make the video, or even just an image, because it's so nonsensical. But when you use ChatGPT to do legal research, that's what you're doing. You're using the wrong tool for the task. You have to think about how to use these tools, right? So ChatGPT at best will be able to find citations like on the internet that's available on the internet. Perplexity is way better than Search GPT anyway. But that's it. Like, it doesn't have access to all the case law, the new cases, or even some old cases. It's only going to find what's on the internet. And that's at best. At worst, it's going to make something up. So again, it's the wrong tool for the job, right? It will take longer and have rough edges, just like the contractor using a power drill to saw a 2x4 in half. So AI is not all equal and cannot be used for all things, right? You want to talk about purpose-built tools. Another, like the catchphrase is agentic AI, right? And there's some different things with agents that get really deep and granular that I'm not going to go into today. But instead of using the marketing buzzword of agentic AI, because I don't have any agentic AI to sell you, I'm going to call it purpose-built tools. So show of hands, who knows what retrieval augmented generation is? RAG. Okay, so less than half, so I'll talk about it. So this is really, really important for legal work. And again, I mentioned when I was just starting to use the AI tools, I was giving it stuff. I wasn't relying on its training data sort of naturally, right? So it's when it retrieves information from, say, a database, or you could give it information, and then augments its response based on the sources. And that increases the likelihood that it's accurate. I mean, and in my experience, when properly leveraging RAG inside these AI tools, some of them are purpose-built with RAG in mind, I don't experience hallucinations. But I also don't experience hallucinations because of how I use the tool, right? And you know, it could be connected to a lot of different things through APIs or databases, right? So it reduces, if not completely eliminates, hallucinations, in my experience, right? And the LLMs are not necessarily trained on these sources of truth. I think it's better if they are, and I'll explain that using this graphic, right? So here, in the top left corner is where you want to be, right? You want industry-specific large language model with RAG. It's been trained on the material, it's studied the material, and before giving you an answer, it's like an open book test. It gets to go look up, oh, I've reviewed that before, let me go find that to confirm. Okay, here's what it is. So it's based on training data, and it's able to go access it via a database. And so in my experience, the only tool that actually at least is promoting themselves as having a legal specific large language model is Paxton AI. And I've been using Paxton for over 2 years now. And I found that compared to all the other tools in the market, they are by far the most reliable. And even the Stanford benchmark testing in terms of reliability has also borne that out. And that was just a gut feeling I had. Like if you're old enough to remember like Ask Jeeves and Yahoo search, you know, like it didn't really find something useful on the internet. And then you use Google and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so user-friendly and it found me something that's useful on the internet. Well, when I first was using Paxton, because of their proprietary legal large language model, it's like having, instead of a super smart generalist do legal research, and your GPT wrappers are in the top right corner, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. It was like having a really smart lawyer do the legal research, right? So that's the difference. You want industry-specific models. I think we're going to see more of them. I think even Thomson Reuters acquired a model-making company that like they like make models, right? So we're going to see a lot more of that. But in the top right corner is when models are like GPT wrappers. So they're using OpenAI, they're using Anthropic, they're using Mistral, they're using Llama, like they're using multi-models, but they're not legal-specific, and they have some building on top of it, but they're still general models, but they're using RAG. They're going to be the next most reliable source of information when you need it to be reliable, which is not always the case, right? Like bottom left corner, that's industry-specific things that it doesn't need to pull from a database. That just going off training data might be good, like drafting a contract from scratch, right? Things like that, but the industry-specific models are going to do that better. And in the bottom right corner, hallucinations is the feature, right? You want something that's more creative, that gives you different perspectives, right? That's like take on the persona of a judge or juror or the opposing side to a contract or a deal you're trying to get done, right? So like the bottom right is still really useful, just not for fact-specific things. So I mentioned GPT wrapper a couple times. Who knows what a GPT wrapper is? Let's see a show of hands. Okay, about the same amount that knows what RAG is, but different people. So basically what it is it takes your foundational models, you know, ChatGPT, Claude, and it puts a wrapper around it. And really, in a way, you going to chat.com or Claude, like that's that company's wrapper around their own model. But now there's other companies that are building purpose-built, and I actually think GPT wrappers are great. It's a way to take a general tool and make it purpose-built for a particular task. So it sits on top of the model, it makes it more accessible, right? Purpose-built for particular things. So when, at least they haven't announced it yet, and if they have, I apologize, but like Lexis and Westlaw and VLEX, like they're more GPT wrappers. They're leveraging these super powerful models, but they're not industry specific, right? And a lot of these like automated deposition transcript tools and summary tools, like they're GPT wrappers. Still, it saves you time and effort from having to copy and paste everything back into GPT and back into Word and all these other things, right? So it's still really useful. I think overall, they're a good thing. Software is a wrapper for code, right? Like interfacing with software. So this is the important part. This is where you're conceptualizing about how you're actually using these tools. Imagine Gen AI is the smartest person on the planet. They're your assistant and they work for free or very low amount of money, right? They've read everything on the internet and they're far less expensive than a human assistant. But here's the important thing. They're an entry-level worker, right? This is their first job and it's their first day on the job. Right? So they're an entry-level worker. This is their first job. It's their first day on the job. And it's like that every time you start a new conversation with them. Right? So think about interfacing with these tools in that way. If this was a human, how would you work with that human? Now, they're the smartest person on the planet, and they work, you know, lightning speed, but you give, like, what would you do, right? You give a lot of context. You'd follow up. You'd iterate on the work product with them. It's their first job. It's their first day on the job. Right? You wouldn't give up if they didn't get it for the first time. They're an entry-level worker, right? And would you trust them as a source of truth? Of course not, right? Now, it also happens that this person is not socially well-adjusted and they don't know how to say no or ask follow-up questions, you know, unless a GPT wrapper does a really good job, right? The benefits of GPT wrappers. And sure, you could prompt ChatGPT to say, ask me if there's any follow-up questions, if anything's unclear. But you don't want to have to do that. There's value to paying these GPT wrappers to do that stuff, that prompting in the background for you. Here's what Gen AI is not. It is not a calculator, okay? 2 + 2 = 4 is an immutable truth, and once programmed, it always gets it right. An objective truth. Language is all made up. We made it up, right? Any philosophy majors? Plato's Forums? Yeah? All right, there's a philosophy major. Okay, don't worry about it. So Gen AI is probabilistic, right? It's just guessing the next most likely word. That's it, right? That's why you can never rely on these things as a source of truth on their own, right? So what makes AI legal specific then? Well, like here, they're gonna tell you this is designed for legal, right? But is that enough? Well, not really, but it is a good start because they're going to be thinking about things like privacy, security of the data. Is it training on anything, right? And they're going to make sure that it's not. And these are the types of questions you have to ask of your vendor, right? Each user, each client within the system is a separate layer, separate instance. They have different nomenclature depending on the company. And there's higher security compliance, like Paxton is HIPAA certified, which is another reason why I love using it. They're SOC 2 compliant, right? So like you want it to be more secure, right? And the company reps, just like with the cloud, they can't access your data unless they're helping you with something. So with general use AI, if you don't turn it off or it's a consumer grade AI, then they're training on everything, right? They typically don't use retrieval augmented generation, and they could access your past prompt history and uploads. It's less reliable. Again, that's not the reason you should use it, but far broader use cases. Well, these are tools I suggest you use that I'm using all the time. Perplexity Pro, Notebook LM, and other Gemini tools, and Descript, which is how I edited that video. It's just AI-powered editor, and as a solo practitioner that does my own marketing and stuff, it's really easy to do. So here's an example of me using Perplexity. It's hard to see the prompt, but I said, I'm an attorney with a client in Illinois who wants to employ his minor child in his business as voice talent. Please provide sources and a step-by-step guide to make sure I can advise him how to stay compliant. Include links to forms and government websites. So traditional legal research is not going to look at government forms on government websites, right? But Perplexity Pro is an AI agent that's purpose-built to search for reliable sources on the internet, summarize it for you in a really good synthesis, and follow your instructions. You could step-by-step guide. You could have it in a chart. You could have all different kinds of things like that. You could even turn them into PowerPoints now. That feature I don't think was available when I recorded this. And they have a deep research function as well, where it looks for more sources on the internet, and it gives you citations. So let's watch what that looks like. All right, so I put in that prompt. I did a search. This is a regular search. Then I'll show you a deep research. So what Perplexity does a great job of is it takes your badly worded prompt and using AI, it makes it better. And then it gives you what you requested, right? Step-by-step guide. This is what it looks like. I know it's kind of small. Oh, you guys can see it all right up there. And then you can share it like you share Google Docs with other people. My favorite prompt is tell me about blank. And if I'm meeting a new person, I ask Perplexity to tell me about that person's name, and then I share it with them. You could click on the sources. So you could check the sources. Maybe you want to go directly to that government website, right? Make sure it's reliable. So it gives you citations that you could click on, that you could compare then side by side. Is this actually a reliable source? And you could double check that. It gives you a short summary. And you go, look, boom, there you go. That's the government website I was looking for, right? Then I like to sometimes run the same search in their deep research feature. They just call it Perplexity Research rather than deep research, but it's essentially the same thing. It's deep research. So now what it's doing is it's looking at a multiple of the sources. It's going to look at least twice as many sources. So the last one had like about 20 sources, and this one I think will come back with over 50. So again, what this is doing is it's using a little bit of deep reasoning, but what Perplexity Pro does, and why I think it's worth paying the Pro version, is it takes your bad prompt and it makes it good prompt and makes it sequential prompting. So you don't have to become a prompt engineering expert. But what you can do is you could click on the tasks. The tab is called tasks. And you could see in here in the deep research, it's far more detailed instructions, right? Far more detailed step-by-step guide in the deep research feature. It has suggested follow-up prompts, yet twice as many sources. And it does math. It integrates with the Wolfram Alpha API, which has a bunch of mathematical algorithms. So you could actually do math in Perplexity Pro. And what I suggest to people, if they haven't used AI yet and they only have $20 a month to spend, this is the tool. Because you'll also, if you look at tasks, you'll learn how to do good prompting. Because the AI will take your bad prompt and make it better. So, and then you could do a follow-up, right? So this is not Google. This is not search answer done. This is you're having a conversation, right? It could give you follow-up prompts, or you could type in your own based on that, right? And it will give you an update. Summarize this for me to explain to a client. Boom, now I've got my client email ready to go with an high-level overview. So Notebook LM, who's heard of Notebook LM? Notebook LM Pro, you make a podcast out of anything, right? So Notebook LM says in multiple places, right? We don't train on your data's secure. If you're a paying user of Google Workspace, don't use with a free Gmail. Pay, so you're either paying $20 a month just for access to the AI tools in Gemini, or if you're using Google Workspace instead of Microsoft, then you're just gonna get access to it for the $12 a month, which is going up to $14. So they say we don't train on your data there. They say we don't train on your data there. We value your privacy, right? They say it again in their other guiding documents. Everything's private, right? We don't use your data, we don't access your data, right? So if you're worried about using this tool, in quadruplicate, Google is telling you, we don't train on your data, it's private, right? When you're a paid user. So here's a demo of me having a conversation with my sources, which could be your documents. Now I chose to ask about my podcast because I have a lot of sources for my podcast. So let's watch this.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are diving headfirst into something pretty fundamental.
Yeah, it's really... Hey there. Want to share your thoughts on this?
Hey, I'm an attorney, and I was wondering if you could tell me what are the 3 most convincing arguments in the sources why attorneys should stop billing by the hour and use the subscription model?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Let's unpack this.
Yeah, great to hear from you. Okay, so 3 convincing arguments.
From what we've seen, the first big one is the conflict of interest.
Right, the sources really hit on this. When you bill by hour,
The lawyer benefits from taking more time.
but the client wants efficiency and lower costs.
Exactly. That inherent misalignment is a huge problem.
Number 2 would have to be the predictability for clients.
Absolutely. One source called it huge value and certainty.
Knowing your legal costs upfront is a game changer.
It just makes budgeting and planning so much easier.
And the third, I think, is the incentive shift for lawyers.
Yes, with subscriptions, efficiency is rewarded.
The faster you solve a problem, the more profitable it is.
Plus, it fosters better client relationships and retention.
So those seem like 3 pretty powerful reasons.
Definitely. And it all connects to the future of legal services.
Where did this information come from again?
It's a collection of transcripts, basically conversations.
From the Law Subscribed YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Okay, thanks. That's helpful, those 3 arguments in favor of the subscription model. But just in case there's pushback, what would you say, based on the sources, are the 3 most convincing arguments why the billable hour should not be abandoned?
That's a really insightful follow-up question.
Yeah, playing devil's advocate. I like it.
So looking at the material, the biggest counter-argument seems to be inertia.
Right, that comfort with the familiar.
As one of the speakers put it, big institutional clients are used to it.
And a lot of firms just follow that lead.
It's the path of least resistance, even if not ideal.
Another point is deception of value.
Some might argue that tracking time equals transparency.
That clients feel they're seeing exactly what they pay for.
Though, as we discussed, that could be a flawed perception.
And finally, there's the data aspect.
The argument that tracking time provides valuable data.
For pricing and understanding efficiency.
Though the subscription advocates offer alternatives to gather that data.
So while there's pushback, it often comes down to the status quo.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
So you already touched on it a little bit, but I'd like you to respond exactly to those arguments you just stated in favor of the billable hour. What counter-arguments would you make based on the sources?
Okay, so you want us to really dig into those points.
Let's look at that inertia argument first.
The idea that big clients expect hourly billing.
One of the folks we heard from suggested that we need to show everyone a different way of thinking.
That there really are no non-billable hours.
Because all the time spent, even on marketing, has value.
It's about shifting that mindset across the profession.
Now, about the perception of value.
That somehow tracking hours shows transparency.
But as one source pointed out, clients often feel nickel and dimed.
They might feel they're paying for inefficiencies.
Whereas subscriptions offer that upfront clarity.
You know what you're paying for the service itself.
And then there's the data argument.
That you need to track time for pricing insights.
But the subscription folks are still tracking data.
Just in a different way. They're looking at the value provided.
And whether their flat fees are covering their costs.
It's about focusing on efficiency, not just hours logged.
So while those arguments for the billable hour exist,
the sources we looked at offer strong rebuttals.
Really highlighting the benefits of moving away. Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
Hey, so just complete pivot now. Let's say somebody wants to dive into this material. Could you please explain at a high level the contents of the sources?
Oh, a bird's eye view of our source material. Absolutely.
It's a great way to orient yourself. Think of it this way.
We've been drawing from a few key conversations.
All from the Law Subscribed YouTube channel.
You'll find a bunch of different perspectives there.
One key theme is definitely moving beyond the billable hour.
Several episodes explore the subscription model in depth.
With lawyers who've successfully made that switch.
They talk about the benefits for both clients and firms.
Things like predictable costs and better incentives.
We also hear from folks in the legal tech space.
Companies like Gavel and 650, for example. Oh, go for it.
Thank you. And now, based on all the sources, could you please suggest a framework that would help an attorney ditch the billable hour and adopt the subscription model?
That's a really important question.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Based on what we've heard, a key first step
is focusing on the who, as one guest put it.
Identify your ideal client and their needs.
Don't just try to fit your existing services.
Instead, build your subscription around them.
Think about what they truly value.
Predictability, access, specific services.
Then clearly define your subscription tiers.
Offer different levels of service or access.
As one source mentioned, like different Netflix plans.
Be transparent about what each tier includes.
And what falls outside the subscription.
Consider an initial onboarding or setup fee.
To cover that initial work with new clients.
Don't forget the tech aspect, it's crucial.
You'll need systems for payment and billing.
and tools for communication and automation,
Client portals can be really valuable here.
as can document automation software.
Think about offering add-ons for larger needs
For those bigger, less frequent legal events,
and really focus on value-based pricing,
selling the outcome and the relationship.
not just the hours spent.
Finally, be prepared to experiment and adapt.
Find what works best for you and your clients.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Thinking about legal offerings in a more structured way
So it's a mix of business model innovation.
and the technological tools making it all possible.
So I did do a little editing, right? Like I added that, like the words to it, right? The captions, and I took out the dead air. It takes them like 5 seconds to think about it when you ask them a question. But for these purposes, I wanted to speed it up. So think about leveraging this for your legal documents, right? What are the 3 most convincing arguments for a judge, right? What are the 3 counter arguments to that, right? Now, of course, I also want to try to convince you about the subscription model. So that's why I used that as the presentation today. But now you don't even need to listen to the Law Subscribe podcast. I suggest you do at lawsubscribe.com and all your podcast apps and YouTube, etc. But there you go, right? Like that just gave you the high-level summary of like 160 plus episodes. These tools are incredibly powerful. We could do the same thing with our legal documents. And I use Notebook LM because it does a great job of semantic search. And like Perplexity, it gives you citations to the documents. So like, where is it getting this information from? And unlike Perplexity, where it opens a new window, inside of Notebook LM, it opens it side by side. So you could check and verify immediately that, like, if it's getting the right information from the right place. And as somebody who uses it every day, I can tell you, it almost always gets it right. What I have found is the YouTube transcripts, it's not able to do citations directly inside of YouTube transcripts, inside of PDFs, inside of docs. It's able to do that. But it does a really good job understanding the semantic meaning of things. So I had a client who scheduled a 15-minute call with me because I don't pick up the phone. My clients schedule calls with me. And they wanted to know if they're allowed to do something under their franchise agreement. So we looked through their franchise disclosure document. It's 600 pages. I threw it into Notebook LM. I've read it before because I've been representing this client for 8 years, even at my last firm. But I didn't know really the answer to this question. So we searched, is he allowed to do X, Y, Z thing that he wanted to do as regard to marketing, like outside of his region where his store is allowed? And there's a sentence, I didn't know what keyword search, I never would have used the words that were used in this franchise disclosure document. But I asked that question in the Notebook LM, and through the citation, I found the exact sentence that we needed that said it was acceptable, right? All within a 15-minute phone call. I'm really like in the first 10 minutes of that phone call, right? Like, talk about the value. That client's staying subscribed, right? So the way to categorize these legal AI tools is, and these are just categories I made up, think of them as AI assistance, research, focused on research, analysis, drafting. There's litigation-focused tools. I've seen some of them here. Database, knowledge database, right? So I'd even put like Notebook LM into that kind of a category. IP-specific tools that are out there, tangibly comes to mind. And then augmentation. And so I don't have enough time to talk about everything. And if you're attending the rest of today's presentations, these are the 2 ones I'm going to talk about. And assistance and augmentation, because these are the ones most interesting to me.
Let me tell you about the brand new sponsor for Law Subscribed, Paxton. I've been using Paxton as my legal AI tool for over 2 years. I continue to evaluate and demo other legal AI tools in the market and still decide to stick with Paxton because of its reliability, its accuracy, its ease of use, affordability, and they do not lock you into a long-term contract. Now, as a transactional and fractional general counsel attorney, I'm using Paxton for all of my substantive and non-substantive legal work, whether that's legal research, analysis, drafting, or enhancing existing legal work product. In the time it used to take me to draft and analyze legal documents, now, after a little bit of back and forth with Paxton, I have something ready to go in minutes that used to take hours or even days. While I'm no longer a litigator, I could see how valuable Paxton would be when researching a new issue, preparing for a deposition, drafting a motion, or going to trial. So if your firm would benefit from using Paxton as your legal AI tool, then make sure to use the link in the description when signing up to let Paxton know I sent you. That's all about our new sponsor. Now back to the show.
So here are your legal AI assistants, and you'll notice that they do different things. Even the assistants are sort of like, okay, I don't want to have a purpose-built tool for literally everything, but in the legal industry, right? So whether it's Paxton, which I mentioned, which is the top left corner of that quadrant, it's the only one I'm aware of that is. But if you want GPT wrappers, right, that are still purpose-built for the legal industry, and you want them to be a more or less all-in-one solution, they still do things way faster, but they might not summarize deposition transcripts as fast, whereas user-friendly, because that's not what they're purpose-built for, but they can do that kind of thing, right? These are the tools. And for most lawyers, still a small firm lawyers, like this is just still a huge upgrade. And maybe you don't need to pay for like 5 different tools, although I am more of a best-of-breed type person. So again, I use Paxton because I just think that it's better. It's proprietary legal large language model. but maybe you want to customize more. LawDroid might be a really good all-in-one solution for you. If you want to do more customization on how the tool works and how it helps you, even have a front-end user-facing client, you could kind of even, I haven't used it, but I've read some of the materials on it. Like you could build your own database and query against it, like make your own notebook LM kind of a thing. And I do that with Paxton. But again, if you like getting in the weeds, LawDroid might be good for you. GCAI, I had a similar experience with GCAI that was like just a wow moment. Like almost wow, like when you first use ChatGPT and it's like, okay, it's passed the Turing test. Like I would believe this is a human being on the other side. So when I was using GCAI, which is designed for in-house attorneys, it's just a GPT wrapper. They started out with OpenAI, now they're multi-model. I asked it some questions about a document and it asked me clarifying questions. Like even more human now, right? Well, what's the party's goals? Who is this party? Unbelievable the way they designed their wrapper. And it's purpose-built for in-house attorneys and the way in-house attorneys work with one client, right? So you could put in all this information about your company and you could hack it for outside your fractional general counsel like I am if you wanted to. But it's going to remember a lot of stuff that are not necessarily, that's like in the context window every time, but is not necessarily part of its training data set. And so they've designed a tool for in-house attorneys to use, right? Legalize, Calidus, they're practice area agnostic, but again, these are these tools. And again, I've demoed all of these. It's kind of like ice cream. Like, maybe you like chocolate, you like toffee, you like vanilla, whatever. But some of them do just have better ingredients, right? And they're better for you also. So some of this is play around with the tools, see what works with you. Centauri is primarily on transactional attorneys. Eve is now focused on plaintiff litigation. So is Alexi. You've got your Legora, which is formerly Leia, and Harvey that are targeting more big firms with tons of data. I had access to Leia. I might have been one of the first lawyers, if not the first lawyer in the U.S. who had access to Leia. And it just wasn't useful to a solo practice attorney who's only been around for, at the time, it was 2 years, because it was a year ago. I don't have a lot of firm data. And it also, at the time, hadn't released any U.S.-based features. It was all U.K. So, but at the big level where your firm has tons of data, those might be useful, right? FileVine is here. So then you got your AI assistants inside your LPMs, your law practice management tools. FileVine has AI, Clio Duo, My Case IQ, et cetera. There's more. I'm sure Smokeball and Practice Panther have AI features inside their tools as well. Then augmentation, right? So what I like about the augmentation space is these are automation tools that already existed before generative AI became useful, but now they're using Gen AI to speed up the way they augment and automate practice, right? So what Screens AI did is, and they got acquired by Agiloft, so I haven't been able to play with any updates that they made, is they automated your contract playbooks. And we're seeing more in that space. LegalOn is starting to offer that product. I've seen some other companies start to offer automating legal or contract playbooks because the unstructured understanding of applying a contract playbook to a contract, like Gen AI makes that really easy to do. And frankly, you could have a notebook LM. I haven't done this side by side, I should. In Notebook LM, you could have one source that's your contract playbook and another source and say, apply this. And it actually might do a really good job in Notebook LM. Gavel, formerly Documate. Gavel automates your documents and workflows. And the way you used to have to do it is you had to do a drop-down menu here, drag and drop this thing here. It was all no-code solution, but it would take like weeks to get a document automated. Now using AI, you put in a document and based on the company's like past data of how documents have been automated, it suggests all the automations in that document. So in about 5 to 10 minutes, you have all the recommended automations already built. So it used to take weeks, you can now do in a day or two, right? Really powerful stuff. Pattern Builder was an automation workflow. Now it's inside of NetDocs. I haven't been able to see some of their Gen AI features, but they are advertising that. They've enhanced the product. It used to be after Pattern. They've enhanced it with AI now. Joseph Q is promising to do this. At the last time I talked to them, they didn't have a solo firm option, like a true solo firm option, so I didn't get to demo it, but they're in this category of augmenting your firm's capabilities. 650 is a document database and automation platform. And so like you make employee handbook or an employment contract, independent contractor agreement there. So some prompt engineering tips, right? Leverage AI like it's a super powered personal assistant. And if you're using a legal specific one, especially Paxton, think of it more as like, an attorney in their first 5 years of practice, right? And direct it like you would a real human being. It's not human, right? I don't think it has a soul. I don't think it's replacing us. I think AGI is a little bit of marketing talk, especially how large language models work. But if you pretend it's a human, you're going to get better results. That I promise you. So some simple but powerful prompts. Review this document and summarize it for me. That's like a button now, and like all these legal AI tools out here, there's just a button because it's so useful, right? But notice it doesn't just say summarize this for me. It says review this, summarize this for me, right? I like to even get more step-by-step. First, analyze this contract. Then analyze it from party A's position. You know, I'll even tell it, I'm a lawyer representing party A, right? Like, and you are, and if I don't have to do this, but if I was in ChatGPT or one of these other models, I would say, and you are an expert attorney, you know, whatever. Like you tell it who you are, and then you tell it who it is. But when you're using a legal specific tool, you just tell it who you are, because that gives it more context, right? Distill 3 most persuasive arguments and explain why. And I could literally have a conversation with your documents in Notebook LM and do that, right? Put all the deadlines and dates in a table with explanations of obligations next to the date. Oh, I'll tell you, that 600-page franchise disclosure document, getting it summarized like this is a breeze, and that's extreme value to my client, right? And also, I've taught my client, that particular client, other client, how to use Notebook LM and some of these other tools, because they could just do this stuff, and then they don't have to come to me. So I'm also kind of their AI expert, so they're still going to stay subscribed, but I'm their lawyer, and I'll still give them legal advice on things. Even if you want to do traditional legal research, then you upload them into your AI tool of choice. So you're not asking it to do research without actually giving it the cases, right? Analyze these 3 cases, synthesize them into 3 paragraphs, and list in bullet points the differences between the facts of each case. And, it might actually be good to break that up into multiple sequential prompts, but I think it'd do a pretty good job of something like that, and I've seen it do a good job with that, right? So you will have results in seconds or minutes compared to hours or days. So some final AI tips here, right? Written, spoken, natural language is the interface. Like if you speak English and a lot of other languages now, you could use the tools. No matter how old you are or how savvy you are with technology. And guess what? It's really only been around for less than 3 years, for fewer than 3 years, right? You could catch up. Like it's natural language and it's still so new, you could catch up. Follow up, follow up, follow up. It's not one and done. It's not search and answer and done and start a new search. You're having a conversation. Context windows do matter, right? But they're getting so big at this point. Like I'm in Gemini a lot and its context window is so big that it doesn't really matter. And if you're using retrieval augmented generation anyway, then you don't need to worry too much about the context window. Meaning it's like, think of it as like a human short-term memory. Eventually you're going to forget, right? Personas are powerful. I just sort of gave some examples, not just you tell it who it is. It's a judge. Tell me which arguments are most persuasive. You got to tell it who you are too. So personas go both ways with the general tools. The future is agentic. I like to call it purpose-built tools. Dazza Greenwood came on my podcast and he said, these large language models, they're elemental. These foundational models, they're powerful. They're like fire. You could do a lot of things with fire. But a candle and a blowtorch are 2 different applications of fire. Can you do the same things with a blowtorch that you can with a candle and vice versa? No. So agentic AI is purpose-built tools for particular purposes, and their power are going to be better than generalized tools that are applying a generalist to them. Non-legal tasks. So we talked about this in the last talk with Brian, where so many non-billable tasks are going to be automated. But then it's coming for your billables too. Semantic search is so powerful. Right? Keyword search is the old way. Semantic search is the new way. And both can still be useful. And in some of these tools, you can do both semantic and keyword search. Yes, we have a question. Yeah, so the question is, what would a semantic search be compared to Boolean and keyword searcher? Semantic search searches the meaning of the word. And words could have multiple meanings, and the meaning can change in different contexts. So your ability to find what you're looking for, in my experience, in particular in a large contract, in a large agreement, just your ability to find what you're looking for goes up significantly. Because it's searching for meaning. It's not searching for a word or a few words or this word close to that word within so many words. It's just going to find the meaning. In a lot of ways, I think, unless you're looking for a specific quote, you don't, I have not done keyword search in over 6 months. I haven't because I haven't needed to, but then somebody wanted to get a specific quote for one of my podcast episodes. And that's when I found out Google's Notebook LM doesn't let you do keyword search inside YouTube attached transcripts. It will only do it inside of PDFs or Google Doc transcripts. Then it could do keyword search. But that's the first time in 6 months I needed a keyword search. Yeah, question up front. Hold on, so everyone could hear. So the semantic search would be the same thing you would tell to an associate. Hey, I need you to go find whatever you're looking for in this case or in this contract. That's a semantic search request. The same thing you can go ask a human being to go do. You don't have to overthink the keywords that you're going to find because the tools will find the meaning of the words. That's what it will find. So in the specific example, I asked Notebook LM to find when is, and we have another question up here that's next, is my client, like I'm the attorney, I represent the franchisee, and I'm looking to see if my client is able to do marketing outside of their jurisdiction where they're allowed to operate a store. That was a semantic search request. I didn't ask for keywords specifically. And it found the exact sentence, and none of those words, and it says they're allowed to, I mean, it basically said they're allowed to market outside. It didn't use those words, but it gave us exactly the sentence that we were looking for. Question? No problem. Yeah, so large language model specific AI tools, because again, AI is becoming synonymous with generative AI. And I use a lot of Google products, and I love Gemini when I'm using it for anything but search. Because here's the thing, it's a foundational model. It's not purpose-built for search. Perplexity's sonar model is. And I actually find that I do see more hallucinations in doing a Google search, because I still will do it sometimes to test it out. And I'm not getting hallucinations in Perplexity, but I'm also not trying to have Perplexity do anything other than search and answer. Yeah, question. So I saw the CEO of Paxton at ABA Tech Show in 2024 explain it on stage, and it sounds like they built their MIT guys. They built their own model from scratch. They are multi-model. So like when it's doing translations from like English to Spanish and Spanish to English, other language, like OpenAI is the best polyglot out there. So and I've done side by side ChatGPT and Paxton to translating things from one English to other languages and back. And it's the exact same because so I know they're using OpenAI for that. So while they're multi-model, their proprietary model, as far as I know, is built from the ground up because they have this technical expertise to do so. Yeah, you have to ask someone from Paxton specifically, but on legal sources, more so than any other, tool has specifically designed and trained their model on all federal and state laws and on millions of legal documents is what he represented. Westlaw, when I said Westlaw, I was putting co-counsel into that category. Yeah. So yeah, and then if you're subscription-based and it can become a subscriber benefit. So in Q4 of this year, Google is supposed to let me share my notebooks with people outside my domain, my .com. And so then I could have clients have access to their file and query against it, and it's only answering based on the sources. So it's reliable when I'm not available. Talk about an amazing subscriber benefit for my clients, right? And an internal firm version for how to onboard new associates or new staff people. Like the HR side of things can be totally automated with Notebook LM. It's amazing. So again, the end of the billable hour is over. I hope I've convinced you, right? And let's just look quickly at rule 1.5 because we're almost done here. So the last sentence of 1.5, and this is the model rules, say a lawyer should not exploit a fee arrangement based primarily on hourly charges by using wasteful procedures. Well, why ditch the billable hour? Because not using AI in your practice means you are exploiting a fee arrangement based primarily on hourly charges by using wasteful procedures. You got to use these tools. And you sat through the CLE, so you understand the right way to use these tools. You are now going to be more efficient. And I would argue, though this is not legal advice, just educational, that you may be violating your ethical rules if you're not using AI now that you know how to use the tools to save time. So yeah, adoption of tech eliminates billable hours. Client expectations have changed, right? Remote meetings are expected. You don't need a fancy office. Cost transparency is demanded, right? Who here pays for anything by the hour? Anybody? Who here, if they're a lawyer, can afford your own billable rate? Raise your hand. All right, I see no hands going on, right? That's the point. So scale is possible without more hire, right? The lawyers in your firm and you are incentivized to be efficient and effective and adopt technology. So let's do a thought experiment. And this is the end of the presentation, and I'll stick around for questions. AI is making billing time untenable and maybe, and I would argue it is, unethical. So imagine your licensing bot bans the billable hour in 365 days. They say we're banning it, but we're giving you 1 year. So now you have a year to strategize and implement a plan. What would you do? Start now. I'm Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney. Connect with me on LinkedIn. DMs are always open there. My law firm is subscriptionattorney.com. The podcast is Law Subscribed. I have a Law for Kids podcast. That's a fun experiment I ran. I may be relaunching that soon. I do have a course, but I'm a practicing attorney first. But if you're really interested, you can sign up for the waitlist. There's my email, but I get so many emails. Seriously, LinkedIn DMs are better. And if you're a lawyer, I'm wrapping up. We wrapped it up a while ago, but in a couple of weeks, the final episodes will air for a series I did with another solo practice tech-powered lawyer in Colorado called How to Run a Law Firm in 2025. So if you go to howtoruналawfirm.com, it will redirect to those 18 episodes. So if you're interested how tech-powered solo practice attorneys, you get into the nitty-gritty of like, how we started, what technology we're using, and even being a parent and being a small business owner. So check that out. So yeah, any more questions? Yeah. So, I mean, frankly, Notebook LM will do a really good job. Nope. Like, you just have to upload your sources into Notebook LM, right? So, and even if your source is a document that summarizes the common law at play, in an accurate way, you could like I said, you could use Notebook LM to do like contract playbooks. You could also use it to apply one source to another source in any sort of context. I think that's a really low lift for it to do something like that. But even these days, even like ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity let you attach documents and query against them. And so I would just make sure that whatever law is being applied, whether that's case law or statutes or common law, as long as it's spelled out for the tool, it will do a really good job objectively applying it. So, I mean, my practice is not based at all on that, so it's hard for me to answer that question specifically. But you don't want to ask a model based on training data. You want to ask it based on they're like a Westlaw or a Lexis, a Paxton representing, or VLEX representing, we have connected it to a database of up-to-date case law or up-to-date common law, whatever. They need to make that representation, or you need to access that database and connect it as a sources to whatever tool you're using. So again, I'm not technical, I'm a practitioner, right? So that might be a question for an actual like AI company to answer. Sorry about that. Yeah. So more questions up here? No? Any more questions? We got one more question up here. 2 more questions? Good. And if you have to go, I mean, we're at time, so here, let me, do they have to scan a thing? So here are the more talks if you're interested, but I'm happy to stick around if you have more questions. So go ahead, question. Yeah. So, I mean, the AI costs, even with like a Paxton, which is $200 a month, which is 10 times the $20 a month for ChatGPT, it's still far less than hiring an associate, right? And it's doing a lot of associate level work. And so the costs, they add up a little bit, but even still, like my annual software spend, this is part of my other talk that I give on tech stacks for law firms, is under $10,000 a year, right? So like, I'm bringing in far more than sufficient revenues, charging $20 a month and $50 a page, with subscriptions up to as high as, realistically, $2,500 a month. So like, you get that one, like if you just have to, as a firm owner, look at what your total costs are. Your total costs have nothing to do with the time spent on thing. They have to do with what are you paying your employees? What are your software costs? What's your rent? What's your hardware costs? Like actual costs, concrete, knowable, fixed operating expenses, right? And I will tell you, as a solo and start a firm from scratch, it's way easier the smaller you get, though. The higher you go up, the larger the firm, like the harder it is to adapt and adopt and get people all on the same page. So when people ask me, well, how do I do it? How do I convince, my 4 other partners or my 25 other partners to do this? I say the easiest thing to do is to burn the boats. We even start from scratch, realistically, right? And then build it up from scratch, and then it's going to be a heck of a lot easier. But you have to look at what market you're trying to serve and what price it will bear. There's an attorney named Brandon Leopoldis, who's a subscription-based sports attorney out of California. Who are his clients? Bench warmers. They're bench warmers. They don't need like high-end, super luxury lawyers. What do they need? They need some contract negotiations. Maybe they want to start a summer camp. He charges them half of their, second condo, for rent, or half of their Range Rover payment, right? So he's still charging like, whatever, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. So you have to look at the market you're trying to serve and price it accordingly based on that. And then the incentives align themselves with adopting technology to get the work done as fast as possible for the client, so that they perceive the value there. And with lawyers, it's hard from an ethical standpoint, because I do month-to-month subscriptions. It's harder in litigation. You just have to have it in your engagement agreement. More things about how to get out and cancel and all that. But I do month-to-month because I don't want my clients paying for money in advance that I'm going to have to refund if that month hasn't happened yet anyway. So we miss out on so many subscription economy strategies because of our legal ethics, but I still think that's just good customer service. I don't want to be locked into a long-term contract. And that's why I love how Paxton does month-to-month subscriptions, because they believe in their product, that they don't have to lock us into a long-term subscription, right? And I've only seen like 4 other lawyers do the per-page pricing that I innovated. Because again, I make my clients subscribe at $20 a month, and then it's $50 a page for a la carte. And I'm able to quickly sell them after a few contracts and paying me hundreds or thousands per month because they may be already paying me $1,000 a month to look at a 20-page contract, right? So $50 a page scales really well. I've seen people charge $80. I've seen people charge $40 a page who have listened to my podcast and reached out. I've had them on the pod. So like, don't underestimate the per page pricing, because a client doesn't know what an hour is. Why did that take an hour? AI did it in 1 minute. And we know, because we're sophisticated and technical, the AI made is not near as good as what I've done with it, even though it took an hour. But they know what a page is, right? They know what a month is, right? So monthly pricing, per page pricing, if you wanted to do a hybrid subscription and fixed fee pricing, that works. But look, I changed my pricing. I didn't get it right off the bat over 3 years ago when I started. It was $100 a page. Nobody hired me per page. I made it 50, and all of a sudden I'm making 30% of my revenue on per page pricing. Like, people are willing to pay for it, especially when the deal is worth $1,000 or more, right? Like, I helped some comics for comedy club agreements where they're getting paid, $1,000 or $2,000. Is it worth $150 to their lawyer to review a 3-page contract that's they're giving up all their IP or licensing it for free forever? Well, absolutely, right? So context matters. You could find the pricing and find a way to make it work. But I could do a whole hour-long CLE just on pricing. It's a good question. All right, any other? Okay, let's take this off because let them clean up, but I'll stay up here for everyone. Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.